Today in 1951, a general got fired by the man. Welcome back to On This Day. Today's date is April 11th, 2023. It is the 101st day of the year. You got 264 days left. It is the 15th Tuesday and the 23rd day of spring. You got 71 days left until summer. Today is National 8-Track Tape Day. Remember the 8-track tape? That was the first music I bought was on an 8-track tape, I believe. I may have had a couple records before, but I'd say the first thing I went all in on was 8-track tape because, for some reason, someone gave me one. It was outdated when I got it. It was like within 3 or 4 months of getting this thing, it was hard to find music for it. The thing sucked anyway. Oh my god, it was horrible. The music sounded good and it didn't have that staticky sound that records had that now people really love. But in case you don't remember, it was this tape system, so a song would play on an album and it would have like 4 or 8 tracks, whatever. So each track would have like 2 or 3 songs on it. Well, you couldn't just fast forward it to the other track or rewind the song you were listening to. You had to go through the whole track and then go back. It was ridiculous. My first 8-track tape I bought was The Cars, their debut album. Been through a lot of different music formats. 8-track tape, then the cassette tape. Of course, we had records, vinyl as they call it now. And then we went to CDs, and then CDs went by the wayside when MP3s came along. I think one of the greatest things I ever had was a CD that played MP3s. So a CD used to only be able to hold like 10 to 15 songs, maybe 20. This thing could hold like 200 songs. Now I think my phone can hold like 4,000. All right, let's see what else happened on April 11th. 1814, Napoleon Bonaparte is exiled to the island of Elba. This was his first exile to an island. He escaped from there and made his way to France. He was eventually recaptured. One thing leads to another, and he gets exiled again. This time they sent him to St. Helena, which is an island off the coast of Africa. A little bit harder to escape from. St. Helena could... they say it's off the coast of Africa, but really it's almost in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. If it was a little further west, it could be considered off the coast of Brazil, too. And if you ever want to visit Napoleon's grave, that's where you gotta go. 1900, the U.S. Navy acquires its first submarine. This would be called the USS Holland. The Holland was the first submarine to be commissioned and considered the prototype for all subsequent U.S. Navy submarines. Now, this was groundbreaking and a real game changer in naval warfare, considering back in that time, the only way you detected the enemy was with binoculars. 1919, the International Labor Organization is founded. 1945, the liberation of Buchenwald concentration camp. On April 11th, 1945, American troops liberated Buchenwald in Germany. The camp had held over 250,000 prisoners, many of whom were subjected to forced labor, medical experiments, and extermination. The liberation of Buchenwald was a turning point in the Allied effort to end the Holocaust. 1951, General Douglas MacArthur is fired by President Harry S. Truman on April 11th, 1951. On that day, President Harry S. Truman relieved General MacArthur of his command during the Korean War. MacArthur had been advocating for a more aggressive approach to the war, including the use of nuclear weapons, which Truman disagreed with. General Douglas MacArthur was a prominent military leader and served as the supreme commander of Allied forces in the Pacific during World War II. He later became the military governor of Japan and played a crucial role in its post-war reconstruction. However, his controversial actions during the Korean War led to his dismissal. During the Korean War, MacArthur became increasingly critical of Truman's policies and decisions. He was not hiding how he felt about his boss, basically, the president. He publicly expressed his disagreement with the president's limited war strategy and called for a full-scale military intervention in China. He wanted to go all in. MacArthur's views were not shared by the administration and caused tension between the military and civilian leadership. In March of 1951, MacArthur went against Truman's orders and launched a surprise attack on the Chinese troops in North Korea, near the border with China. This action violated Truman's directive to avoid any direct conflict with China, and it also escalated the war, causing significant casualties on on both sides. Truman saw MacArthur's action as insubordinate and a threat to the stability of the region. He also feared that MacArthur's proposal to expand the war to China could lead to a border conflict and possibly involve the Soviet Union, which would escalate into a full-scale global war. Now keep in mind, we just recovered from one of those. Hadn't even been a decade. As a result, Truman relieved MacArthur of his duties as Supreme Commander and replaced him with General Matthew Ridgway. MacArthur's dismissal was a controversial decision, and it divided public opinion. Many Americans viewed him as a hero and believed that Truman had made a grave mistake by firing him. However, others supported Truman's decision, arguing that MacArthur had overstepped his authority and endangered national security. Now, here's the thing about the military if you've never been there. You gotta follow the orders. If you don't follow the orders that were given to you directly, the whole system collapses. And like it or not, the president is in charge of the military. In conclusion, General Douglas MacArthur was fired by President Truman due to his insubordination and disagreement with the president's policies during the Korean War. Truman's decision was necessary to maintain civilian control over the military and to ensure stability in the region. Honestly, there's no getting around it. It had to be done. I'm a big fan of MacArthur. He did amazing things in World War II. I personally think he kind of got that vibe, I'm above the law because I'm Douglas MacArthur type thing, and he didn't have to listen to orders. And with a world superpower, that's extremely dangerous. 1970, Apollo 13 launches. On April 11, 1970, the Apollo 13 mission launched from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The mission was intended to be the third manned lunar landing, but an explosion in one of the spacecraft's oxygen tanks forced the crew to abort the mission and return to Earth. Pretty good movie made about that. Movies released on April 11th, 2014, Joe. This is a Nicolas Cage movie. It's not too often I will recommend a Nicolas Cage movie. I mean, he hasn't done anything really good since National Treasure, I think, which was excellent if you've never seen it. But he did this movie, Joe, and it was interesting and it was pretty good. Anyway, to provide for his family, a 15-year-old boy takes a job as a forest laborer. His ex-con employer, Joe, played by Nicolas Cage, who buries his rage in drinking every single night, forms a bond with the boy. After realizing the nature of the boy's abusive family, Joe takes matters into his own hands at the risk of losing his freedom again. So it's a nice story with some violence. It's probably on Netflix or, Amazon Prime or something like that. It's worth a watch. I wouldn't go out of my way for it. I wouldn't have probably seen it in the movie theaters, but I got it like on HBO, saw it on HBO one night. It was pretty good. Born on April 11th, 1944, John Milnes. He's a film director and Academy Award nominated screenwriter for Apocalypse Now. He did a bunch of other movies. Anyway, he went to USC's School of Cinema and Television, and he attempted to join the Marine Corps during the Vietnam War, but was rejected due to asthma. He wrote and directed the 1984 film Red Dawn, as well as co-wrote the first two Dirty Harry films. So one of the greatest movies he ever did was Big Wednesday, and I think I talked about this recently. Feel like I have. If I haven't, I'm going to talk about it again. Anyway, he was friends with George Lucas. At the time Big Wednesday was coming out, Star Wars was coming out, and they both kind of made a deal where they would each give the other person a percentage of the profits just in case one of theirs bombed. Big Wednesday bombed. George Lucas thought that was going to be the winner. It would make tons of money, and Star Wars would just kind of be a typical science fiction movie. He was very wrong. In the end, Milnes got about $1.5 million for Star Wars, which he had very little to do with, and George Lucas got nothing for Big Wednesday. I'd also read that Steven Spielberg had something to do with that deal too, and I'm not too sure about that one. Died on April 11th, 2017, we lost Jay Giles. He was the lead guitarist and founder of the rock band, the Jay Giles Band, who had the #1 hit Centerfold in 1982. He was known for his skill on guitar, excelling in rock, blues, and jazz solos. He got his degree in engineering from Worcester Polytechnic Institute. His band was originally called Snoopy and the Sopwith Camels, but in the late 60s he began playing electric guitar and changed the name. His song Love Stinks was prominently featured in Adam Sandler's film The Wedding Singer. On April 11th, 2017, Groton police conducted a well-being check on Giles and found him unresponsive in his home. He was pronounced dead of natural causes at the age of 71. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, and be nice to each other.